Today, I'm excited to share with you 9 things that I wish I knew when I first started beekeeping. Hey guys, David Burns, good to be with you today. Hey Beak Squad, thanks for joining me for another video. I'm giving away one of my online ultimate beekeeping courses. I'm excited about that. So be watching all the way through. I'll tell you how you could potentially be the winner. Love being with you guys, and today I'm going to just really share my heart with you about 9 things I wish I would have known when I first started beekeeping. But stay tuned all the way through the end because I have a very significant bonus tip at the very end. Number 1, I really would have gotten my mind wrapped around queen rearing right from the very beginning. I know that sounds like, oh no, you need to keep bees a long time. You need to kind of gain a lot of experience first. And I totally understand that kind of thinking. But at the same time, queen rearing is not all that difficult. And it really can be learned before you start beekeeping. I mean, you can get a book, you can watch videos, you can take my online queen rearing class, the book that John Zavishlak and I wrote, a booklet about how to raise quality queens, and you can study it and it will really start to make sense to you. So now wait a minute, I'm not saying that you need to raise queens before you start beekeeping. Don't misunderstand me. I just think queen rearing needs to be high on the priority of the things that you learn as you begin beekeeping. Here's why, okay? Because number one of the biggest problems people have when they first start keeping bees is queen issues. The queen died. I had to buy a new one. My queen's not laying well. What do I do now? I've got to get another one. They hang on, new beekeepers hang on to queens that are underperforming and they really don't know how to get another one. And sometimes when you have a queen failure early in the year, after you buy a package or a nucleus or something like that, they're so exhausted of resources, nobody has a queen. They're out. They're going to take a month to ship you one. So having that extra skill set of being able to raise queens as soon as you can in your beekeeping endeavors, man, you'll be ahead by far. Let me tell you the impact that learning how to raise queens has had on my life. When I started my beekeeping business several years into it, I ran up against the wall financially. Man, I was so far behind on bills, it wasn't funny. Didn't have any way to get caught up either. I was just like, man, I'm done. I owe so much money, you know. There was one skill set that I had mastered, and that was raising queens. And so I decided that I would just up my production of queens, sell more queens. I needed to raise about 100 queens a week to help pay down these excessive bills that I was up against. And lo and behold, I did it. I worked hard all spring, all summer, I think even into the fall, raising and selling queens, and it really did save the farm. I mean, it was just such a relief. I couldn't believe it. It's another way that you can make a little sideline money on the side, but it's also a way that you can help your own bees be more productive. Sometimes if you're raising the kind of quality queens that you like, that really do perform well, more mite resistant, produce more honey, overwinter better, you know, typical qualities that we all want, then boy, that can really help you. So if you've been keeping bees and you haven't got into queen rearing yet, that's the one thing I really encourage you to do. It's going to help you in so many ways. Second thing that I was really slow in learning after I started keeping bees was bee behavior. Oftentimes we call it bee biology, and I didn't really think there was anything to it. Okay, I knew there was a queen, I knew there was a whole bunch of workers, and I knew there were some drones in there. What more do I need to know? I know they make honey, I know they go out and get nectar, bring it back, and they turn it into honey. Boom, I know all the bee biology I need to know, right? That was my attitude, and I thought that's all I needed to know. But as time went on, I began to face different kind of bee problems with my hives, problems with low honey production, bees that were dying, bees that weren't really growing, weren't producing a lot more bees. What's wrong? What is going on, right? I didn't understand bee biology, bee behavior. The sooner we can learn bee behavior, bee biology, and keeping bees, the faster we're going to be able to keep healthier bees and make fewer mistakes. And how do you go about learning bee behavior? Well, we would think we could learn just by opening the top up and looking at them. But there's a lot about bee behavior that we have to learn from studies and people that have written books about it and examples of visual examples that we can see. Because a lot of times you can't teach yourself what you don't know, right? And so you have to find someone that can really take you through some really good lessons, some really good mentoring, or some really good bee classes where you can really apply yourself to learn bee behavior, bee biology. And I'm talking about the simplest thing of knowing how to look at a frame and say, look at that. That is a frame of eggs. Or here's a frame of 2-day-old larvae. Or here's a bunch of frames that are kept over pupae. And you can expect to know when they're going to emerge. You can look at a frame and say, aha, look at this. I know the bee behavior so well that I can tell the bees are starving. They don't have enough resources. And that's another thing we'll talk about more in just a minute. But understanding, what do bees eat and when do they eat it? So when do I need to make sure I feed them and evaluate if they have enough food on board? And something we're all going to be facing in a few months about bee behavior, it's all about swarming. It's frustrating to come out of winter with a very strong colony and then all at once they swarm once or maybe twice and they have trouble ever raising a replacement queen. She never makes it back to the hive and eventually the hive just perishes. Even after it made it through winter. It's so frustrating. So understanding bee behavior, bee biology, means understanding swarm control, swarm management. When to make that split, when to keep the hive together for more honey production. That's all bee behavior. I wish I would have known that when I first started. Now, before we get into tip number 3, let me encourage you guys to please subscribe. Bobblehead David has a sign and he says, please subscribe. I'm trying to get up to a lot of subscribers by the end of the year, so we've only got a few more weeks to do it. And so please subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And also give me a thumbs up. Now, the third thing I wish I would have known is location. Location, location, location. Where to put the darn hive at, you know? Which way does it face? Where should it be located at? And most of us locate our bees for us. I want to locate my bees where I can have access to them, where I know that they'll be out of the way of the kids' playground, the swing sets. I know they won't be where the dogs are, where the horses are. We put them in a place where it's comfortable for us. But it may not be the best place for the bees. We may have them right out in the blazing wind, so wintertime is going to be tough on them. We may have them in a very shady spot where small hive beetles are going to really take them over. And so understanding the location really goes a long way. When I first started beekeeping a long time ago, location really boiled down to a water supply. We wanted them to have a little bit of dampened sunlight, and we wanted them to have some source of water nearby. And that was it. Today, times have changed a lot. Now we have so many things working against bees, like the Varroa destructor, making bees have a more difficult time overwintering. And so now we want a wind block. And then we have small hive beetles. So now we want to keep them in the direct sunlight. So I wish I would have known those things when I first started. Another thing that was very painful for me to learn, I wish somebody would have told me this, is that if you're a beekeeper, you're going to experience losses and failures. And it's all it is to it. Look, bees are in the animal kingdom. Animals die, they perish, they get diseases. There's a lot of pathogens out there. There's a lot of toxic chemicals out there that bees are going to get into occasionally. So I wish somebody would have said, look, you need to be careful because understand you're keeping a live animal in that hive and they're going to be prone to fail. They're going to be prone to die. So look, I want you to understand as a beekeeper, don't get flat out discouraged if your bees perish. You've got to understand that all of this is a big learning curve for all of us. I've been keeping bees for a long time and I've lost so many hives from my own mistakes. I've been a certified master beekeeper through the Eastern Apicultural Society, and I'll tell you what, I've been a master beekeeper for 13 years and beekeeping really is still challenging. I'm still learning something every day. But as hard as we try to dodge a hive dying and failing, it's still going to happen. Now, on YouTube, beekeepers often don't show their failures. Nobody likes to put their failures out, air their dirty laundry, right? And so we often see beekeepers on YouTube have enormous amount of success. It's crazy, isn't it? They have big trucks, they have lots of helpers and workers, they have just kind of a hillside just covered in beehives, like they never lose a bee. It's like bees live forever under their care. And that's not true at all. Bees are going to perish under anybody's watch. People die in hospitals under the most optimal medical care. Bees are going to die even when they're kept by the most brilliant beekeeper there is. It just happens sometimes. And if you're a new beginner, you may have a lot less skills than the professional beekeepers, so you're even more likely to experience failures and losses of colonies. So here's what you do. Understand that when you start beekeeping, it's a strong likelihood that your bees are going to perish after 1 or 2 years. What you have to do is know that, acknowledge it, and be ready and learn, keep good notes so that if they do perish, then you'll be able to look back through your notes and say, I think I should have done more of this or less of that. Now, before we get into tip number 5, I want to say I want you to win my ultimate online beekeeping course, and here's how. I'm going to randomly pick a comment. So right now, I want you to leave a comment below and tell me what you enjoy most about beekeeping, or if you're starting next spring, tell me what you think you're going to like most about beekeeping. So just leave a comment, tell me what you like most about beekeeping, or you will, and then I will randomly select a winner, one winner, for my ultimate online beekeeping course. Good luck. The 5th thing that I wish I would have known when I first started beekeeping is more about seasonal management. I really thought that seasonal management just meant summer. I thought, bees are just something that you kind of play with during the summer, spring and summer, right? You kind of put them in a box from a package and they grow, and you give them more boxes, and you put a honey super on, and you take the honey super off, you harvest it, you bottle the honey, and that's the season. That's all you do to manage it. And really, when it comes right down to it, spring and summer, even though it involves some activity from the beekeeper, it really is one that is not all that troublesome. In other words, bees do quite well in the spring and quite well in the summer. It's when we hit fall and winter that we really have to manage our bees a lot better. I wish I would have known that how I manage my bees in late winter, early spring, and fall, and all through the winter are more important than how I manage my bees in the summertime. One example is I learned by feeding my bees in the wintertime made all the difference in the world at how well my bees would overwinter. Who would have thought about winter management? Number 6 is that success in beekeeping takes 10 years. Wait a minute. You've heard me say that you really become knowledgeable after 5 years, but true success, I think, of anything at all takes about 10 years. And let me explain that. Now, you can be a successful beekeeper after a year or two. I get it. You can. But I'm just saying this. If you want to really succeed at something, if you pick a subject, a hobby, a passion that you want to live for, something that you really want to pursue in life, if you pursue it and do it consistently for a decade, you will be good at it. And it's just no way around it. Seriously, if you take anything that you're pursuing right now and practice it or work at it consistently for 10 years, in 10 years, you'll be an expert at it. And that's it. I'm talking about applying yourself, learning. Like if you're a beekeeper and you're a dedicated beekeeper, that means that you're working your hives regularly, you're inspecting them regularly, you're reading a lot of books on beekeeping, maybe the book that Sherry and I wrote, but you're reading a lot of good material, you're looking at new studies, you're actually keeping good notes, and you're kind of learning what you see in your own hive, you're attending conferences and workshops, listening to speakers. You're going to really learn very quickly. And within a year or two, you're going to know a lot. But let's face it, after 10 years of learning, you're going to know a lot more. So I want you to understand, beekeeping takes time to really get good at. It really does. Be okay with that. A lot of people, I think a lot of times we watch YouTube videos and we think, oh, this guy just started beekeeping last year. He seems pretty good at it. Look at all the honey they harvested. That's pretty cool. Why can't I do that in 1 year? Well, luck happens to us all sometimes. But I'm just saying, we can really learn the art and the science of beekeeping the more time we put into it. So don't give up. Know that it's going to take a while. But look, it's a journey. It's not a finish line that we're headed for. The journey of enjoying bees and learning more about bees. So make sure you know success takes a decade. Number 7, one of the things I wish I would have known when I first started, I wish I would have known more about pests and diseases. I knew nothing about pests and diseases. I barely knew anything about bees. And so when my bees were struggling with some pests or diseases, I didn't see it. I didn't know it was there. I didn't know it was present because I just didn't know what it looked like. And so some of my bees, and especially when mites, I had bees before mites took over. And when those mites, people were saying, oh no, mites are bad. They're coming everywhere. They're spreading rapidly. These varroa structures are hitting all hives across the US. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't even bother to look at what mites looked like. I just heard people talking about it. It wasn't back then, it wasn't like it is now. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have YouTube videos, just kind of hearsay being passed around, so on. But, one time my hives, when they did die, I looked carefully and the varroa mites were all over them. I didn't even know what to do. So then I had to learn behind the 8 ball. I had to start attacking my varroa destructor mites in new colonies that I got because mine died from mites. I had to start over, and then I had to start learning about mites and it was a tough learning curve. I wish I would have learned about pests and diseases before I started beekeeping. That way, I would have known what to look for. Number 8, I wish I would have known more about equipment. Now, it seems pretty simple. Bottom board, boxes, inner cover, top cover, boom. What is there to know, right? Now, there's a lot to know about equipment management. The anatomy of the hive. The hive is the boxes without the bees in it. The colony is the bees. So you look at it like, okay, I need to know a lot about how do these boxes all work and how can I maximize using the hive to help the colony? What can I do what should I do when I need to minimize the hive into a single deep rather than 2 deeps? For example, if you start seeing a lot of wax moths more than necessary or more than common in your hive, then you might say to yourself, oh, I need to consolidate my colony down into 1 deep box, because if I give them 2 deep boxes, that equipment is too much room, providing too much room for those wax moths to spread in unpoliced frames and start destroying frames in other places that bees aren't in. So knowing how to manage your equipment, what it's used for, the best way that the use of your equipment can help your bees is huge. I wish I would have known that and all the different hive equipment, knowing about when to use a queen excluder, not overwintering with a queen excluder, things like that, so important. Not putting an entrance feeder in the entrance in late summer or fall. If I do, they're going to get robbed out. I didn't know that when I first started. Using a screen bottom board can help them beard a lot less. Bearding is a way that bees cool their hive by a lot of them hanging outside the hive all night. So I wish I would have known a lot more about the equipment. Number 9, I wish I would have known a lot more about the tools of beekeeping. When I first started beekeeping a long time ago, I had 2 tools. 2! I had a smoker and I had a hive tool. And that's all the tools I had. Now, there were beekeeping magazines from 1 or 2 companies that were running strong back then. And so I would look through their catalog. Nothing like today. Today, our catalogs are just jam-packed of everything possible known to beekeeping. It's crazy. You can look through a bee catalog now, and some of the things you look at, you wouldn't even know what they are or how to use them. There's so much stuff out there. But back then, there were things that were helpful. And I remember one of the first things that I bought, and when I was kind of thumbed through the catalog, I found what's known as a frame grip. Now this frame grip, because I didn't really want to touch bees. I didn't want to touch frames with my bare hands. Way back when I started, I was scared to death. I didn't start as a very knowledgeable person about bees. I just started kind of like because a friend says, hey, you want to be a beekeeper, right? I didn't know anything. I didn't want to touch bees and get stung. A frame grip allowed me to grab a hold of the frame and pull it up without having to touch the frame. That's how scared I was back then. So there were some tools that I began buying. But today there are so many tools. Now, are all these tools necessary? I've tried a lot of tools recently that have hit the market and I just can't make them work for me. They're clumsy, it takes too much time to utilize them. But there are some things that we need today that are tools that make beekeeping much more efficient and enjoyable. One of the things is the J-hook. The J-hook hive tool has made it so much easier for me to lift frames out of my boxes. Another example is one of the ways that I control mites is with breaking the queen's brood cycle, which breaks the mite's brood cycle. Back a long time ago, I had to make my own push-in queen cages. I even made blogs about how to make your own push-in queen cage. There were no push-in queen cages. You had to make your own. Now, a useful tool, there are plastic push-in queen cages that you can buy at any bee place and confine your queen to the frame and hold her there for a week or so while the mites don't have a place to reproduce because our brood cycle's cut down. Now that's a useful tool. The green drone comb, another useful tool for controlling mites. The queen lays unfertilized eggs on them. Those are drones. Mites prefer hanging out with drones, or young drones, or when they lay eggs for drones, mites will jump in there. And so you can take that out and freeze it after it's capped over and kill all the mites. So I wish I would have known which tools are useful and which are not when I first started beekeeping. I promised that I would give you a bonus tip. So this is tip number 10, and that is, I wish I would have known to have been very careful in trying to mimic the pros. What's a pro? Well, it's somebody that makes their living off bees. It's somebody that's been keeping bees a long time, maybe a commercial beekeeper or a sideliner. It could be a hobbyist that's doing great with a bunch of hives. Doesn't have to be a commercial guy, but I'm talking about the beekeeping pros. It's been around a while. You see them at every state fair winning ribbons. You see them at farmers markets selling their honey. They sell packages, they sell nukes, they sell queens. They just like a beekeeping pro, right? If you try to mimic the pro by watching what they do and you try to do what they do, what happens is you may not have all the information that they have from years of experience. In other words, they have all the knowledge of bee biology. They know how to extract honey correctly and quickly and store it properly. They know how to manage their mites. They know how to look for diseases. They know how to raise queens. They know how to do all the things necessary to make it look very easy. And so when you try to mimic them without that bank of knowledge that they hold, then inevitably you will start wondering, what's wrong? I did everything they do. My bees aren't doing what their bees are doing. In fact, my bees are dying. So be very careful in trying to mimic the beekeeping pros. Give yourself chance to catch up with them in knowledge and experience. Hopefully these 9 plus the bonus tip can really help you guys really make fewer mistakes. But hey, beekeeping can really be frustrating. I made a video right here helping you guys kind of ease the frustration by answering your questions. So take a look at this video. I'll see you over there.